So we've just found out that a good portion of the conservative alternative media space is being paid by Russia today through subsidiary shell companies, through the Czech Republic, through United Kingdom, and through other countries for well over a year now. And not only are they paying them, they're helping them to create content, they're reposting their content, they're promoting their content, and spending about $10 million to get these people under contract and to be able to use their content and make shows with them, while also funneling them stories that are propaganda, that are anti-Ukraine, that are pro-Russia, and in many instances completely made up. And this is a pretty, considering certain signs we've seen recently, it shouldn't be that surprising. I've been ringing the alarm along with many other people who are on the ground in Ukraine covering the war about the problem with Russian disinformation in the West and how people are not getting their sources from on-the-ground journalists or reputable sources, but through social media feeds that are highly influenced by information warfare. And this has been a problem that has been raised not primarily by me, by the way. I'm not an expert in information warfare, but by intelligence experts, by experts on the region, experts on the KGB and modern Russian intelligence, just Russia watchers generally. And we have been hearing about the Russian attempts to influence our elections for a few cycles now. In 2016, they tried to influence the election, and then we saw the born name of the Russia hoax. And ever since then, the problem with talking about Russian intelligence operations in the West has been that many conservatives, primarily conservatives, not just conservatives, sometimes you've got alternative people who are, maybe on the fringe left, or other people, maybe people who are hard to define. We've been talking about how we've been seeing Russian disinformation in the space. We've been seeing the repeating of Kremlin narratives from content creators like Tucker Carlson, from content creators like Benny Johnson, like others in the space that have significant influence on the right and talk to elected officials quite a bit. And we didn't know where exactly all these takes were going from to point A to point B. I was thinking that maybe these content creators were going over and reading Russian state outlets to get an alternative source to try to promote the alternative perspective. But it seems that the Russian government actually got rid of the middleman altogether. And since Russia Today was shut down in 2022, they founded a company in the United States with 2 Russia Today employees to, try to operate an information warfare campaign, and started making contracts with American content creators, alternative media content creators, to try to get their narrative out there. That's why they wanted to do it, is because they could no longer do it through Russia Today. And so they went out for people to go get under their employ and spread this information. And my goodness, if you guys are curious as to what content creators were involved in this, don't worry, we can go just check out the website. The website's still up. The website is still up. We can go check it out right now. Let me show you a Russian information operation. Tenet Media. Tenet Media. Fearless voices live here. Now, the indictment released by the DOJ on Russian election interference, again now in 2020, 2024, which is why we're talking about Russian election interference and why the Russia hoax problem, people calling it the Russian hoax, is a big issue, is because nobody takes it seriously because of how people have labeled the Russia hoax. And so when the Russians have been interfering with American politics again and spreading their propaganda, and people, journalists and others, have been ringing the alarm saying it's permeating in the space, we hear Congress people like Marjorie Taylor Greene going on national television to talk about how the Ukrainian government is harvesting the organs of babies to fund the war effort. Just boundless, insane propaganda. Not surprising, considering she's a former QAnoner, that she would fall for such things, assuming she was just a fool and not maliciously acting there. But now we have the shell companies, we have the monetary transactions, we have the Discord messages, we've got the conversations between the Russian agents, and on top of this is the open boasting from Russia Today specifically, which has been talking openly since the beginning of this war of how they're going to still engage in information warfare to get the quote-unquote truth to the American public. And they've been bragging about it this year. They've been talking about how they're using covert operations to spread information in the United States earlier in February of this year. The indictment even talks about it. But, you know, because of the Russia hoax label, because people have now, you know, maybe in their mind it's a boy cried wolf situation, being good faith here for the most good faith individuals, now they let their guard down. And for these people who are caught up in this, I'm going to put it less as, oh, they let their guard down, because there were a lot of warning signs here. And not only were there warning signs, a little bit of digging should have produced a bunch of red flags, but it did not. And only did it not produce a bunch of red flags, a lot of people made a lot of money off of it and accepted Russian narratives to be regurgitated to their audience with little to no pushback. According to the indictment, at least, of course, we're waiting for Tim Pool's response and Benny Johnson, which we do have and we will read since they were caught up in this as well. But my God, this indictment is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for a few reasons. It's embarrassing not only because a lot of these people seem to have been clueless that they were caught up in an intelligence operation. Not everyone. Lauren Chen, I think, was pretty aware of the situation from what I read in the indictment. So they were saying that they knew the money was coming from the Russians, but others here. And so for them, they're just purely bad actors. I think maybe they want to destabilize the United States for their future right-wing utopia, all that other nonsense. But a lot of these people were completely clueless, even though there were a ton of warning signs, did not ask a lot of questions when it came to the money, when the large sums of money were offered. And some people here are much worse at negotiating than others. Now, before we get into the specifics of the indictment and what exactly people were regurgitating and how these people got caught up with Tenet Media, I do want to do two things. First off, I want to list the people who are involved, and I want to give you their labels, because again, in the indictment, it doesn't say the names of people, so it's all only like referred to as like commentator 1, commentator 2. But due to the subscriber counts that they use in the video, due to the fact that they say Tenet Media slogan in the indictment, but not Tenet Media, so you can bring it to Tenet Media, and then you see the content creators that match with the subscribers, people have been able to narrow down very quickly. In fact, I saw Eric Tuller and others like very quickly narrowing down that many of the who was, going from person to person to person to person. Okay, one second. The reason I'm like kind of a little off base right now is I'm getting messages from all these people who are like, dude, I can't believe so-and-so who I knew X, Y, and Z, or hey, Dylan, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Can you see that? It's wild. This is what this is this should, and it should reverberate through the space. It should reverberate through the space. I just want to say quickly before we go through this information, my mind's still racing, that this is a massive scandal. This is not something anybody can just wash off. The evidence is clear. The evidence is clear, okay? And this is not oh, look at me, I'm the victim for a lot of these people. And I know that's the label that they're going to put out there. After reading the indictment, for me, you have to be almost like completely negligent to have not asked the questions that you needed to ask. And so the best case scenario for the people involved, in my view, is that they were clueless, had no journalistic rigor, and didn't want to ask any follow-up questions when the money started flying. So, you know, greedy and hard-headed, you know, like greedy and, you know, just walking forward with their head forward, you know, not thinking about the consequences. This, while not a great picture for Benny Johnson and the other people involved, and if you want to look at the people here, you can see their content creators, the talent they call them, their talent. Lauren Southern, let's read you their descriptions. Lauren Southern is a Canadian journalistic documentary filmmaker and former Hippy Dippy participant. So if anybody ever wants to say that me, Dylan Burns, as somebody who's covered the war in Ukraine quite a lot, I never show the Russian perspective, now you could say I had the Russian perspective on my show, employed and everything. Anyway, sorry. I'm being a little cheeky. She is well known for her film Farmlands, where she investigates the murder of South African farmers. Then there's Tim Pool. Tim Pool is a podcast host based in West Virginia. I thought it was Maryland. Thank God he moved. Not our fault anymore, okay? Having first established himself as a credible journalist. How? He covered civil unrest events around the globe. By the way, can I just throw out there, the funny thing about Tim Pool being involved in this type of information operation is that the Russians were also, through the information warfare, I think it was was it the Information Warfare Agency, or it was Prigozhin's project. I forget the name of it. Somebody in chat will remind me. Okay, I know a lot of you guys are nerds too, but the Internet Research Agency, which is, I believe, what it was called, they would not only spread information to help candidates they wanted to win, but generally to cause chaos. And so what they would do is they'd go on Facebook and they would organize the Black Lives Matter side of a rally and the counter protesters, hoping that they'd clash. Meaning Tim Pool, the man who would yell hours and hours and hours about the riots and the need for calm and how, you know, the hypocrisy of the mainstream media, ended up working by extension to the same apparatus that was trying to provoke those riots. Isn't that interesting? Of course, best case scenario for Tim, he didn't do this purposefully, but it is something that I'm thinking about. Tyler Hansen, Matt Christensen, Dave Rubin. By the way, can I just throw out there, Dave Rubin, I think was Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, and the rest of these guys, as you can see here, much better negotiators than Tim Pool. And I don't want to be too mean. Okay, I'm kidding. Considering the circumstances, I don't want to be that sassy, but look at this. This is from the indictment before we get into more of the specifics, just about the negotiating portion, because I don't want to get too much into the exact sums of money. We will, but I just want to say this one thing about Tim Pool that I found very, I don't know, funny. So Benny Johnson would end up negotiating a deal with the Russians for about $400,000 a month in exchange for 4 monthly videos, plus a $100,000 signing bonus. Tim Pool agreed to $100,000 a video. Dave Rubin also got a pretty good deal comparative to Tim Pool as well. I am starting to believe that Tim Pool might not be a fantastic negotiator. But let's get into the thing now that we've gotten through all of the initial shock of what's going on and what we're exactly dealing with. Okay, so let me run the general timeline for you, and then show you some interesting communications and evidence that is building this case, because this is all super fascinating to me. So again, in 2022, the Russian government sees its propaganda apparatus, Russia Today, which has openly stated on multiple occasions that their goal is to forward the interests of the Russian state. They're no longer able to operate in the West. This is a problem. They need to operate their information warfare campaign if they mean to subvert the West from supporting Ukraine. And that is the primary objective of this operation, by the way.
They are either useful fools or greedy traitors. Anyone with a shred of sense knew the Tenet, talent, were foul. They are all traitors, period.
Thank you so much for the $10. I appreciate it.
A curd is a curd.
We are in an information war.
Yes, this is information warfare. We're seeing information warfare has officially hit the alternative media space in a really big, I mean, it was here before, but it's hit it very openly, very publicly in a big way, and the DOJ indictment is leading the way. So the propaganda apparatus gets shut down. So Russia Today wants to operate a covert operation. And so what they do is they get 2 employees to go over and set up Tenet Media. It was originally called View. It was View, like I think ViewSigned or Viewpoint. It was something else, but they eventually went to Tenet Media, which is where we see here. And they found an organization with about $10 million of backing that they funnel through Czech shell companies and other shell companies. Once the money is with Tenet Media and the people, they go out to Dave Rubin and Tim Pool. Now, Dave Rubin and Tim Pool were the first people they went to. Let's see if we can actually read about this interaction in the words of the indictment, because I thought this was fascinating. Because there is a bunch of warning signs that somebody who worked for Vice, and that's what Tim Pool did, and others like Dave Rubin, who calls himself a journalist, should probably be picking up on. Let me read you about their initial interactions and contact with these people. On or about February 17th, 2023, Founder 1 sent an email introducing Commentator 2. Now, Commentator 2 is Tim Pool. To Edward Gregorian. This is the best part, okay? So Edward Gregorian is supposed to be, here he is right here, a Hungarian businessman that is doing business out in, Europe, and, he's a financier and he's a very wealthy man. I mean, $10 million is a lot of money to put into a project like this. And so, of course, Tim and Dave and others need to be shown a source of this money from Tenet Media. And that's where this persona, not a real person, Let me be clear, this guy's completely made up. Edward Gregorian comes in, which is controlled by the founders of the company, the people who are doing this stuff, by these Russian Today agents. They're impersonating him. They've got a fake personality, a fake puppet, and they're saying, hello, Tim, hello, and they do a call and to convince them that this guy's real, and they try to, pitch to them like, you should join with Tenet Media. And as they're doing this pitch, I want to read you something that, again, for somebody like Tim, should be a massive red flag.
On a scale from the sun to Nickelodeon green goo, how slimy is Tim Pool? Also, are you ever going to have Lauren on ever again?
As for how slimy Tim Pool is, given his excuse, and we're going to read it in a bit, he's pretty slimy. I don't know if we're at Nickelodeon goo, but he's in one of those, those gooey, there were little toy packets with a little goo as a kid you could play with and roll around. I think he's about those levels, and the longer this crisis goes on, it'll start covering his body more and more as he tries to beat it off, So good luck to Tim in that effort. But let me read you this email contact, because they were making contact in early 2023. So this has been going on for about a year and a half. On or about February 17th, 2023, Founder 1 sent an email introducing Commentator 2 to Edward Gregorian. Persona. The parties arranged a call between Commentator 2 and Edward Gregorian, which took place on February 22nd, 2023. And scheduling the call, Commentator 2 requested that Edward Gregorian call Commentator's 2 cell phone. So Tim Pool is saying, hey, call my phone. Instead, Persona 2 asks that the call take place on WhatsApp or Zoom. Now, what's interesting about this is that both of these applications have possible encrypted communication software that you could use to try to throw off the location of the caller. And so let's say Tim, somebody who worked for Vice, wanted to look into something like that. By using that software instead of, say, a phone call, they would not be able to see that the person who was operating the personality was maybe in Moscow. And there's a ton of examples in this back and forth, in the back and forth between the different founders and the agents, and through communication with the different people involved of different mess ups. That is again, red flags. It's like, okay, we're not doing any cell phones, and oh, well, I've never met the person in person. And hey, it looks like in these emails, his name is misspelled a few times. Hey, he tried to arrive in a call hours and hours and hours before the call was set to happen. But it would have been the right time if it was in Moscow. And a lot of tiny red flags that if you hadn't met the person, or if you never really could Google the person and find anything about them online, because if you Google him online, you find nothing, there would be a concern. So if you're someone like Tim, what do? Obviously, you need to get to the bottom of who this Hungarian businessman is after this call. And before this call, what was it? I'm trying to remember the timeline. No, this was before the call, I believe, and then they had the call. But one of the things they did, because it was the call and one other thing. So this is the contact Tim had with the Hungarian businessman and a lot of these other people, is a call and what I'm about to show you. And this right here, man, I'm a little all over the place, but it's just because I am just in disbelief, is a profile they made up for Gregorian. Mind you, this man is not real. He is fake. He is not a real person. So they made, since you couldn't find anything about him online, made a profile for this businessman to send over to Tim Pool and other content creators. Let me read you about Edward Gregorian. Experienced finance professional and investor. Deeply engaged in business and philanthropy, leveraging skills and resources to drive positive impact, supporting a range of organizations worldwide with a dynamic presence, mainly in Brussels and London, engage in personal and professional pursuits in each location with a focus on poverty alleviation, championing free speech, and advocating for social justice causes. Now, what's interesting about this is Commentator 3, which is referred to in the indictment, which is actually Benny Johnson, by the way. And while they don't say it in the thing, these content creators have since come out and they've started saying, hey, in the indictment, so we already know this. But Commentator 3, Benny Johnson, was it Benny? No, that wasn't Benny. It was, I can actually check right now which commentator it was. I can read you because this part really tickled my funny bone, okay? Because this to me is hilarious. Here it is. Founder 1 transmitted the Edward Gregorian profile to Commentator 1 to persuade commentator one, so we're talking about Dave Rubin, to perform work on behalf of Edward Gregorian on or about May 12, 2023. Founder one reported to the persona that commentator one had a problem with the profile we sent over, specifically the reference to social justice. I think it may be because that's usually a term used by liberals, but we're trying to create a conservative network. Founder one suggested that commentator and Edwards should simply speak together to clarify the profile, and they then had a call before Dave Rubin would then go on to accept a contract for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars from Tenet Media. So basically, the only problem that I can find from the indictment that these guys had with Edward Gregorian's profile, this fake Hungarian businessman doing work in Brussels that none of them met, and all they've ever seen is this profile that you can't find anything on him online, but this profile sent in PDF form, one page, and this one phone call. They signed these contracts with Tenet Media to produce deals with them, to produce content on their channel and to promote their channel, and for Tenet Media to make content with them. So they're giving them stories, giving them pitches, stuff like that. And again, they're doing this with the whole host of commentators, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson. Again, these channels, when you go across them all, they rack up millions and millions and millions of viewers. And the goal, and I believe this, the Justice Department ended up saying that they ended up having about, I think, 16 million, I forget the exact amount of views. But the point is, there's a lot of potential reach here. And so let me tell you about the monetary side of this. I think we have some of the monetary deals that we could talk about to say how much people paid. As I said earlier, Benny Johnson would work for $400,000 a month in exchange for 4 monthly videos with a $100,000 signing bonus. Tim Pool agreed to $100,000 a video, but he got 0 signing bonus, which, I mean, for me, seems a little wild, all things considered. I mean, you would think Tim Pool, again, would be able to negotiate a better deal. Dave Rubin, I wonder if I could find where Dave Rubin was paid. I'm sure it'll be in here. Here it is, because they were all the main problems I'm finding in this document about their conflict with Tenet is almost always just pay. It's just they wanted more money, and it was to the point where the organization said that it's not really feasible for us to make this a profitable endeavor because these people were, to put it blunt, greedy. And they kept asking for, more money, which they then gave to them, which again implies to me that Tim Pool is just a terrible negotiator. But they said that it straight up would just not be profitable, that they could not make money off of this. They're not going to be able to recoup their losses, and it's going to be a net loss. Despite the possibility of it being a net loss, or the almost certainty that it would be a net loss, they did it anyway, and they signed these contracts because the purpose of this, again, is not to make a media company to make money. They're getting money from RT through these shell companies to influence the American election going into 2024 to try to elect candidates that will be more favorable towards giving Russia the terms they want in reference to the war in Ukraine, and to destabilize the United States, which has also been a concentration of Russian intelligence operations because they want more chaos. RT, I remember when RT was talking about, and they say this in the indictment too, when they were talking about what's RT's stance on Brexit, one of their staffers told one of their journalists, whatever causes the most chaos. And it's because if they're internally divided in the UK, if they're internally divided in the United States, if they're internally divided in France or wherever, then that means they're concentrating on fighting each other instead of concentrating on defending against the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the violation of the treaties they made determining the post-Soviet borders of Europe and breaking the European peace that has held since the Yugoslav genocides, or really since World War II, when you talk about the scale of the violence and the violation of Ukraine's borders. I'm trying to find the money that Tim Pool asked. I can't find, does anybody have it? It doesn't really matter. Point is, they're all getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. But Dave Rubin was a much more, I would say, ample negotiator, or much more vicious negotiator than Tim Pool was. He was able to get much better deals. Let's read a few more things here that I wanted to bring some attention to, because there's a lot here. It's 34 pages. You can go read it yourself. In fact, I would advise you to go read it yourself, because all of this is very, 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 very fascinating. Okay, so at this point, I'm sorry, there's gaps, but I have so many notes. I'm trying to I'm trying not to, lose any information. At this point, after they start signing contracts, they get contracts with Tim Pool, they get contracts with Dave Rubin, they get contracts with Lauren Southern, they get contracts with Benny Johnson, and they get contracts with Matt Christensen, and I believe one other person that I just cannot recall, but not content creators of a similar vein. It was six commentators that are officially referred to in the indictment. And again, you can go through and see which each commentator is. Number 5 is Lauren Southern. Number 6 is Matt Christensen. By the way, they say of Lauren Southern that she is very good at sharing their content so far. So the Russians are giving props to Lauren Southern for being very good for sharing their content. Commentator 3 is Benny Johnson. Commentator 2 is Tim Pool, and commentator 1 is Dave Rubin. And once they got all these people signed, they make Discord channels with them, and they not only organize the shows for Tenet Media, but after organizing the shows for Tenet Media, which is going to be, commentary that is beneficial to Russia's interest, mixed in with other stuff. None of it needs to be defined by one particular ideology, but it has to have a general overarching arc of serving Russia's interests. And it gets to the point where they're trying to find ways to see like, well, it doesn't include it in our contract that we have access to their main channels, but let's start asking the content creators to start making our posts on their channels. They start using Tenet Media to post information about, for example, misinformation around the ISIS attacks in Moscow at the mall. Let me tell you the lengths of what these guys did not see the red flags for. There was a point where there was a back and forth, and we got to go to page 24 for this, because this baffled me to no end, how nobody heard any alarms, nobody saw this, and thought this might have been a problem. So at one point, they have to start getting these guys to push Russian propaganda, because that's the whole purpose of the information warfare operation. But the problem is some of it is just too on the nose. Some of it's too blunt. So one of the people from RT, from Russia, she starts saying, I don't know, some of this might be a little on the nose. Let me read you about what happens and what happens when they go all the way in and how they're received positively. On or about November 1st, 2023, one of the 6 commentators listed on the U.S. company's website posted a video on YouTube announcing the launch of U.S. Company 1. So they're like, hey, I'm with Tenet Media now, woohoo. In the video, commentator 6, and when we're talking about commentator 6, that is going to be, sorry, I have lists of all the commentators on my commentator 6 is Matt Christensen. Explained that the U.S. company was a project of Founder 1 and Founder 2 who were trying to build a new platform for independent media with an initial lineup of 6 content creators. Meaning, initial lineup, they wanted more. Their goal was not just Lauren Southern, Tim Pool, Taylor Hansen, Matt Christensen, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson. It was to pick up other people. And this is from how I read about how they fished these people, these were the ones that made contracts with them. These were the ones that took the bait. Meaning that they very well were probably trying to get other people, but these were the ones that got snagged on the hook. What that means for their character and their gullibility and their rigor as journalists, as many of them define themselves, is a separate question. On or about November 1st, 2023, one of the 6 commentators, project. After the public launch, Anna Fastia, using her covert persona, aggressively advanced RT's investment in U.S. Company 1 in at least 2 ways. First, she demanded that Founder 1 press U.S. company hired commentators to share their content with the commentators' pre-existing audiences, thus magnifying the impact of RT's message through the U.S. company. For example, on or about February 16th, 2024, the woman in question messaged Founder 1 on Discord, I do worry that neither Commentator 3, we're talking about Commentator 3, and Commentator 1. So Commentator 3, we're talking about Benny Johnson, and Commentator 1, we're talking about Dave Rubin. They don't share any raw video posted on X. Commentator 2, now we're talking about Tim Pool, shared only 1 video this week. Commentator 4 didn't share any raw videos. Okay, Commentator 4 is... Sorry, man, it's hard to keep track of all these. I wish they could just say who it is. I mean, we all found out immediately who it was anyway. It'd make the reporting a lot easier than us all having to match the subscriber counts. But Commentator 4, I would have to assume is the one that's left, which is Tyler Hansen. Didn't share any raw videos. The only one, she only shared her mini doc and its promo. Commentator 4 didn't share any raw videos. She only shared mini doc and its promo. I think if it's not Tyler Hansen, then I think it might be Lauren Chen. Sorry. It's hard to keep track of all these people. There's just so many of them. Commentator 5 is good at sharing the content so far, in reference to Lauren Southern. Do you think it would be possible if Producer 1 could start producing videos a bit earlier? I talked to Producer 1 about posting earlier, and in fact did so. A few days later, she again messaged the founder, are they going to post things earlier today? I think we need to post things earlier, and ask the commenters' media managers to share raw video. So they're working not only with the commentators directly, this is their media teams working together. Their media managers, their editors, their translators, whoever's working, they're working together. It's not only integration between Tim Pool's staff and Tim Pool and these people, but his staff and these people. And for the rest of them, like Benny Johnson. Many media managers to share raw videos with subtitles posted on US Company X. At least one share a day, not one per week. So they're trying to really use them to pump out this content to meet the view numbers that the Russian government wants to see in order to influence the outcome of the election. I know this is not an obligation, but we are falling behind with numbers, and we need to make our best so the content creators can share one raw video a day. So they're trying to get all this stuff pumped out. And let me read you about how this woman from RT started rebuffing what the Tenet Media was trying to put out there, because she thought it was too blatant and it was going to expose their media operation. And then they did it anyway, and no one noticed. On or about February 15th, 2024, so this is like next year, early this year, shared with US Company 1 a video, this is Tenet Media, of a well-known US political commentator visiting a grocery store in Russia. Chat, I've been raking my head on this one for a bit. Do you guys know who that could be? I don't know. I'm going to ask chat and the commenters on YouTube when this is released to please leave your best guesses out there, because I just can't figure it out. Let me check YouTube chat quick. Maybe they'll enlighten me. No, they don't seem to know either. They don't seem to know. Well, who knows? It could be anyone. It truly could be any. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's Vosh. Oh, where were we? Oh yes, grocery store in Russia. Posted the video in the producer Discord channel. Later that day, producer 1 privately messaged founder 2 on Discord. They wanted me to post this, referencing the video that she had posted. But it just feels like overt shilling. The founder of the organization is like, the Russians want us to push stuff. It's like, oh, I don't know. Founder 2 replied to founder 1 thinks we should put it out there. Producer 1 acquiesced. All right, I'll put it out tomorrow. Another example. On or about March 22, 2024, the woman working for RT again. Sorry, I got it a little mixed up earlier. This all came out very quickly. She's the one trying to push it. The producers are the ones that are like, I don't know about this. It's a little much. She shared in the producer Discord channel a video on March 2022, 2024 of a terrorist attack on a music venue in Moscow, which killed approximately 145 people and injured hundreds more. Now, we covered this attack on the channel. The Islamic State claimed responsibility, but Ukraine was blamed by the Russians with no evidence. That is what they're referring to here. So far, all the evidence points towards it being who you likely would think would do an attack of that style, which is ISIL. Producer 1 privately messaged founder 1, writing, I don't know if you saw it, but they want me to post some footage from an attack in Moscow today. There's a watermark in the middle of the page that's blurred, which looks bad, and it's also pretty graphic. You can see people get shot, albeit from far away. Founder 1 did not push back on the content of the clip, but replied in the producer Discord channel. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to blur out someone's watermark. She then assured the group that it's fine, no worries, it falls under fair use. And then they posted the clip. But check this out. This right here is about Benny Johnson, commentator 3, and them getting him to push the Russian line about the terror attack.
John Brown Enthusiast has donated $5. Dylan, but what about Tim Walz saying that he used an AR-15 in war? Surely that is much more important.
Surely. Absolutely, surely. The next day, on about March 23rd, 2024, she privately messaged founder 1 on Discord asking that one of our creators record something about the Moscow terror attack. Despite public reporting that the foreign terrorist organization ISIS had claimed responsibility, she requested the U.S. company blame Ukraine and the United States, writing, "I think we can focus on the Ukraine-U.S. angle. The mainstream media spread fake news that they claimed responsibility for the attack, yet ISIS itself never made any statements. All terrorists are now detained while they were heading to the border with Ukraine, which makes it even more suspicious why they would want to go to Ukraine to hide." Founder 1 responded that Founder 1 would ask Commentator 3, which is Benny Johnson, and the next day confirmed that Commentator 3 said he's happy to cover the fake news story. He's openly taking this Russian information ops information and pushing it to his audience. Not just him, but many, many others. And the signs were there from the public. Let me show you something. This is something we covered on our channel not too long ago. I don't have the link for when I posted about it immediately after, but here's a different link of the same clip. This is Tim Pool on his show just like a few weeks ago. I think this was like 1 or 2 weeks ago, talking about Ukraine being the #1 enemy of not only the United States, which Ukraine hasn't, fought and taken any American cities, haven't, hurt any American. They haven't done anything wrong in the United States, but also the world. Listen to this.
They know it, but I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong. I know you've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
But not only apologize to Russia, it's so over the top. No wonder the DOJ started noticing. No wonder the DOJ started doing stuff. The Russians got a little too, confident after a year and a half of getting away of producing propaganda with Tim Pool, and he did it for a year and a half and some of the most crucial part of the war. When the aid was being delayed in February and March and April, this is when they were producing content for them that was against aid for Ukraine with this Russian propaganda outlet. They were actively, whether willingly or not, informed or not, acting as information warfare tools. That's what Tim Pool ended up being at the time Ukraine aid was being held back during key battles, for the Battle of Avdiivka, for the battles for many different cities, that ammunition shortage that was partially caused by U.S. aid delays hurt these battles, hurt lives, hurt soldiers who died because they didn't have proper ammunition. Of course, you can't say exactly who would have lived or not, but saying that a unit might have had better survivability because it had better equipment and it had ammunitions for its guns is not a stretch. And there's been some people studying and working to try to figure out how many lives, and a lot of estimates I see is something like the thousands, but it's hard to say. But the point is, Tim Pool, Lauren Southern, Benny Johnson, and everybody else on this list became tools of a Russian information operation. Whether they did it on purpose, maliciously, trying to operate for a foreign government, or they did it unknowingly and were easily tricked because they didn't have proper vetting or journalistic rigor and did not check where the hundreds of thousands of dollars that came out of thin air was properly coming from, didn't follow up with the shell companies. If you go down to the shell companies, you want to know what the Czech shell company that was funneling this money to Tenet Media did? It sold auto parts. That's what it was listed on as doing, selling auto parts. Why would a Czech auto dealership be funneling millions of dollars to help Tim Pool maintain his skate park? There's nothing suspicious here. Everything is above board. No questions need to be asked. Freedom of speech is once again saved by the brave Hungarian financier. Now, there's more here, and I recommend you guys go read the indictment. It is 34 pages. It is long, but it wouldn't take that long. And like the last 8 pages are not necessary. Just read the middle portion for when they finally made contact with these creators to see which creators were the most willing to help them, how much each creator cost, because you can see how much money people were asking for. So you can see how much, they cost in order to make this type of content. You can hear complaints about how they were, worried about this content or this message of them being agents getting out there because they were too blatant, but these guys ran with it like Benny Johnson anyway. The whole thing is just unbelievably embarrassing. And everyone involved, not only is there a question about their continuation as commentators in the space to be respected voices if they are so easily fooled, but there should be no question that none of these people could ever be taken seriously ever again on anything they have to say on the war in Ukraine. I'm sorry, I'm fumbling on my words, but I'm taken aback because I thought I was going crazy. And I know Destiny thought he was going crazy. I know other creators in the space thought they were going crazy because they were like, God, something smells like Murmansk in here, like Vladivostok, like Moscow. Because we'd see these narratives proliferate. We'd see these talking points that I would only see when I'm watching Russian state TV. And I'd see it reverberate to people like Benny Johnson. And I'm thinking, how did Benny Johnson get this information? And I was telling you guys when I was talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene going on American TV, talking about organs being harvested from babies. Don't think about just these individual content creators and their predisposition to be easily tricked from, I'm going to go fight the establishment, and then they're just fighting for another country's establishment as it brutally invades another country. I'm taken aback. I don't really have much more to say besides none of these people can be considered credible on any foreign affairs issue or even on domestic issues, really, for certainly this election, considering the purpose of this was to manipulate the results of the 2024 election. And these people need to release the communications with Tenet Media, with their representatives, and all information they have on it to the public so we can determine if they were maliciously working with foreign actors to destabilize the United States and to undercut American foreign policy towards Ukraine, or they were just easily tricked. Because so far, the only responses I'm getting is stuff like this from Benny Johnson. A statement on the leaked DOJ indictment today. A year ago, a media startup pitched my company to provide content as an independent contractor. Our lawyers negotiated a standard, arm's length, which was later terminated. We are disturbed by the allegations in today's indictment, which made clear that myself and other influencers were victims in this alleged scheme. My lawyers will handle anyone who states or suggests otherwise. You better be quiet out there in the public. Benny Johnson and his lawyers are looking out for anyone who gets a little bit too rowdy about how he became a Russian stooge and undermined the sanctity of an American election. But not that his side has cared much about the sanctity of U.S. elections when you can just ignore the results anyway. Hey, if the results don't matter, why would it matter if a foreign country is trying to influence the results? If who wins and loses is not something that dictates who you think should be in the White House, then why should it matter if a foreign government wants to help your side? Alliances of convenience, we've all heard of those before. Look, I'm not saying that Benny Johnson was knowingly working with the Russians in order to destabilize the United States or influence the election. Maybe he was just their schmuck and stooge, and he's going to call himself a victim, but it's hard to call yourself a victim when you're getting so much money. Much more money than Tim Pool, by the way. So I'm not giving anybody the benefit of the doubt. It's not that I don't think any of these people aren't stupid enough to be tricked. I do. Especially Tim, but it's especially Dave. It's not that I don't think that. It's that I am not considering how much of a bombshell this is and how we're all just finding out about this right now and the warning signs that were there from, not being able to find any information about this Hungarian businessman online, from the shell companies, from the Russian propaganda they were pushing and the lies they were asking to push, from where this money came from in the first place, from not really knowing who the financier is in the first place, from there being no record or tracking of the financier. I mean, Tim Pool worked for Vice. Did they not say, hey, we have this amazing investigative tool here in the journalistic world. It's called Google. And if you're a real rebel, you can try Bing. Like, why not? Why would that be so difficult for him to do? Basic journalistic rigor. And this is not the first time this has happened. The Shirashima Award is another example of people trying to finance through intermediaries, content creators that help their side. That's how Jackson Hinkle got his money. I don't know if you guys knew that. It's not just Jackson Hinkle, though, either. Jimmy Dore is another. But these guys are considered much more mainstream than like a Jimmy Dore or a Jackson Hinkle. Tim Pool was a journalist for Vice. I mean, what journalism did he do for Vice that was necessarily groundbreaking or, you know, journalism that I would like? Not much, but he was a journalist for Vice. And he did no digging, no reflecting. And because of that, assuming their innocence, I do not think is wise. It's not that I think that Tim Pool is a Russian agent, but it's also that I can't say he isn't. It's impossible now. He was involved in a Russian information operation. The DOJ says that he was probably deceived, so I can say that it's likely, and I would probably bet on it, but it's also not impossible. And we're just talking about Dave and Ruben because it was Dave and Ruben that they say were deceived. They don't mention if Lauren was deceived. They don't mention if others was deceived because it's likely that they don't know. And the only real person who knows are those people in question. And whether when they were seeing those red flags, they decided to ignore it or not, because Lauren Chen didn't. And they referred to them as the Russians. So it seems that some knew, some didn't. Either way, that was Benny Johnson's response. Tim Pool. My statement regarding allegations in the leaked DOJ indictment. Should these allegations prove true, I, as well as the other personalities and commentators, were deceived and are victims. Chat, can we all show some respect for Tim Pool in the comments? As a victim of getting $100,000 to talk for 2 hours in a podcast, would anybody like to victimize me and give me $100,000 per episode? I cannot speak for anyone else at the company. I mean, he was deceived, but there were so many warning signs, and this happened for so long that it's impossible for me to like really be like, Tim Pool should be viewed as a victim here, because at a certain point, it's negligence and irresponsibility. And I think even if you could call Tim Pool a victim of deception, he's also a victim of his own irresponsibility, poor vetting, and lack of journalistic rigor. I cannot speak for anyone else at the company as to what they do or to what they were instructed.
John Brown Enthusiast has donated $5. Use this to dry your eyes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The Culture War podcast was licensed by Tenet Media. It existed well before any license agreement with Tenet, and it will continue to exist after any such agreement expires. The only change with the agreement was that the location of the live broadcast moved to Tenet's YouTube channel. Never at any point did anyone other than I have full editorial control of the show, and the contents of the show are often apolitical. Examples include discussing spirituality, dating, and video games. Yeah, they're trying to find other ways to bring people into the... If it was just, hey guys, Russia is great, well then of course nobody's going to tune in. That's why they need to find intermediaries like this to get to their audiences, buying access to the viewers who trust Tim. The show is produced in its entirety by our local team without input from anyone external to the company. So they didn't throw any pitches or topics or anything. Because when I was reading this, it seems like they were pitching topics at people like Benny Johnson. So Tim is claiming that is not the case with his, even though the report says it was the case with other people's managing content editors. TCW is a separate company not associated with Timcast or other properties. It exists solely for the production of the Culture War podcast. That being said, we still do not know what is true, as there's only allegations. You would think, like, okay, I've worked with organizations before, And if a scandal dropped, I'd be able to talk a little bit about an organization, show that I know a little bit about an organization. If you worked with Intel or at a car repair company, or I guess at an auto parts dealer, I don't know, in this Czech company, if you're doing any of these jobs and you work for like a year and a half and a scandal like this drops, like, how much does Tim know? This should be the question that everyone, how much did Tim know about this company before he bought in? How much evidence was he shown of his existence? He needs to show the communications to prove that it wasn't basically them coming along and like rushing him along, because that's what the DOJ report seems to suggest. Let me read you another portion of this DOJ report, because there's so much here that I'm not including. Again, you can go read it yourself, go share it around, go build, I don't know, go print it out and pass it out to the public, go make t-shirts out of it. I don't know. Yeah, here it is. This is what I was looking for. On or about February 22nd, 2023, Founder 1 emailed Persona 1 that Founder 1 had spoken with Commentator 2. This is what I was looking for Tim Pool, who was happy with the licensing arrangement that was discussed on Commentator 2 call with Edward Gregorian. Founder 1 continued, however, that Commentator 2 still would like to know more about the company and who he will be working with. Founder 1 added that Founder 1 had assured Commentator 2 that as we finalize the contract and begin working to put his show together and coordinate the launch, everyone will have time to get to know each other better and feel less like strangers. Worst case scenario, they maliciously got bought out by the Russians. Best case scenario, they all got hustled into a Russian information operation and were hurried along into the piles of cash. And when they saw the dollar signs, you don't ask questions about the red flags. I'm being a little malicious right now about my assuming of intentions, but my goodwill has drained out of me.
I wonder if Breaking Points have a similar arrangement. John Green has also a video telling how he was directly approached by a Russian spy.
This is very common now in the alternative media space. Jimmy Dore, Jackson Hinkle, Tim Pool, Lauren Southern, Benny Johnson, Matt Christensen. I mean, who else we got here? Lauren Southern, previous guest on the Hippy Dippy podcast, Tyler Hansen. And I mean, I'm just talking about the obvious ones. I'm just talking about like the ones we didn't know that were obvious. The obvious ones like Scott Ritter and, Douglas McGregor, like it's like plastered all over them. These are the covert ones. The other ones are overt. Like Tim Pool's actively worked against the interests of the United States by taking part of this. I just wanted to throw that out there. Like he was part of an information operation warfare campaign against the United States for about a year and a half. That's like a full rotation in Afghanistan. Like 8 months is a rotation, man. He had a full rotation and a half to maybe 2 rotations in the information warfare campaign. My goodness. Tim Pool already deleted his tweet. What? Did he?
Save money.
Oh my God, he did. He did delete his tweet. Oh, stop. He's reeling it. It's not over. The engagement's not over. He's pulling back. Retreating. Tim Pool's retreating.
Occurred is occurred.
Retreat into the beanie.
Be dangerous money.
Putin is a scumbag. Russia sucks donkey balls. And the journalists who wish to jump the gun, create their own narrative, or lie about what's currently going on, you can eat my Irish ass. Corrected. Corrected because I didn't know this was an official DOJ release. Oof.
Dylan, scroll
Tough.
the webpage.
Anyway, let's continue. We got more to talk about with this. Man, okay, so we got Benny Johnson. That's the thing that I don't get. Oh wait, they were right. I didn't even notice that. So they both said that it was leaked. No, it was officially released by the DOJ. Why were they saying it was leaked? Why did they make the same mistake as Benny Johnson? How did they both say it was leaked? It's kind of weird that they both said it was leaked, isn't it? Isn't that a little weird? Has Lauren Southern responded yet? Let's check. We got to check them all. Just saw my first Cybertruck in the middle of nowhere, Canada. My son turns to me and says, when I grow up, I'm going to put a lift kite on my Cybertruck. Dream big, little guy. Dream big. Let's see. Who else? We need to check up on everybody, okay? Oh, thank you, Tenet Media. You make this actually very easy for me. How you doing, Taylor? Oh, look at his header. Ah, oh, that's rough, buddy. Ah, your apparatus, man. Oh, he has news tips at Tyler@tenetmedia.com. Hey, let's send him an email, actually. 1 second. Let me just send him I want some news tips. Let me send him a news tip, actually. I think it's 4 news tips. Yes, that's what it's for. Let me give him a news tip. I just sent him, a message. Make my values known. Oh, we got a statement from him. Statement on DOJ indictment.
Is now the time to pull the useful idiot rhetorical card.
What do you mean? Look, the best case scenario, they're all too stupid to be doing news coverage. That's the best case scenario. They're all too stupid to be responsibly covering foreign affairs. And they should stick to, I don't know. What about video game essays? Can we talk about the ideology behind Fallout 4 or something? That could be something up Tim Pool's alley. He could, go talk about how Croc, is racist and woke or something. I don't know. Statement on DOJ indictment. These allegations come as a complete shock to me and the other hosts at Tenet Media. I want to be as clear as possible. I was never directed to report on any topic and had complete... DOJ kind of seems to be pointing in a different way, but okay. I mean, it didn't say that about Tyler. They said it about Benny, but whatever. Maybe that's why Benny's was the shortest. And had complete freedom and control over my reporting at all times. I would never agree to any agreement where I am not the sole person in charge of the stories I cover and the content I create. I've had complete freedom to cover what I choose at Tenet, unlike other media companies I've worked for, and certainly more so than the left-wing and MSM outlets that are directed to cover certain stories and get punished if they don't. Oh, thank God. Tenet Media has more principle than the Clinton News Network. Thank God we have this guy to stand up against the mainstream media, and his moment of shame, he stands up to tell us the truth that the real problem isn't the money that he took from the Russian government. The real problem is Jake Tapper. There is clearly some level of coordination going on, and I've been receiving inquiries from MSM and leftist outlets in unison. Oh, you receive one from me too. Since the moment the indictment dropped, I have not had the opportunity to speak with Tenet founders or anyone at the DOJ, and like you, are awaiting additional information. I will keep you posted. And he quote tweeted the Tim thing, but Tim deleted the tweet, so now it's just in response to a deleted tweet. Unfortunate. One more thing to add. Anyone that knows Lauren and Liam Chen know that they love America. No, I'm sorry. If you're taking money from a foreign government that is actively trying to destabilize the United States, if you love America, you're an abusive wife or husband. They've been wonderful to my family. Oh, well. Lord Haw Haw was very nice to me and my kids. Please don't hang him, Mr. Britain. Get out of here. The report seems to indicate that Chen could have been very aware of who the Russians were. Lauren, while they dutifully did their work according to the Russians, at least it doesn't say that she knew. There's a good chance that Lauren Chen knew and then kept doing it anyway, indicating that she would be willing to actively work with a hostile government in order to attack an American election with information warfare. That, if that is the case, that should come with criminal charges and, honestly, possibly prison time, at least if we lived in a country with some justice in it. They've been wonderful to my family, and allowing me to report on the truth instead of censoring certain topics like other conservative outlets do. It's election season, and as someone who's no stranger to malicious persecution by the government, thrown on the domestic terrorist watch list for my reporting, I'm predicting that this is a big smear job against an uncensored, unapologetic, and an American first media company. America first, Kremlin more first. Come on, man. It's just sad. How you doing, Matt? How's your day going? Are you doing well, Mr. 30,000 followers? Oh, I know people who know him. Oh, good luck. Oh, here it is. I'll be hosting a special stream on my channel to address the Tenet Media controversy at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My friend Frank will join me. Good luck, buddy. Good luck. On the bright side, you're about to get your first hit piece. Dog. AEW. My God. Don't make me hate wrestling. He worked for a foreign government trying to destabilize an American election. How anti your own country towards your own ends do you have to be like, I think it's good if my government is in chaos and elections don't work? And that, I'm done. No, I just can't. It's too stressful. Oh my God. I hope this is a wake-up call. I hope to God it's a wake-up call. Dave Rubin, did he say anything? He just retweeted Benny's and said nothing. Oh, look at this. Dave Rubin's retweeting the stuff on Lauren Chen. Oh, snap. They found their fall guy. They found their fall gal, Lauren Chen and her husband. The indictment alleges that the founders of the company, Lauren Chen and her husband, intentionally deceived the influencers mentioned below. So we already talked about this. We were just talking about Lauren Chen. If anyone's anti-American, Lauren Chen is anti-American. And she's been working with alternative media content creators in the far-right, alt-right space for forever. But this would mean that Dave Rubin, I think maybe they found their person to throw under the bus and see if they can scurry out of there without looking like they were too gullible to foreign actors. Yeah, it looks like he has said nothing. So Dave Rubin's still quiet. Matt Christensen will talk later. Benny Johnson released a very short statement. Lauren Southern has still said nothing. So Lauren Southern and Dave Rubin are the ones who have really said nothing. And the rest of them are currently either saying, I don't know, well, maybe censorship, well, maybe. If their viewers and their followers fall for these games, I'm the victim. Actually, this is just censorship. Oh, this was leaked. It should have never been. Actually, never mind. It wasn't leaked. Whatever games are played here, if the best case scenario, again, let me just hit on this one last time, is either they're so gullible that they were this easily yoinked and used as a tool for information warfare by foreign intelligence and foreign propaganda outlets, or they maliciously deceived their own audience and worked for foreign actors, either for money, fame, or as a convenient alliance towards their ends. Either way, none of their viewers should trust them. I mean, I wouldn't trust them on anything, but certainly not on anything that has to do with the Kremlin, Russia, or really foreign affairs in general. Fuentes wasn't named because he's an American Fed. God, these governments need to get there and look, okay? Here's my warning for all of the foreign agents that are watching all this alternative media. Get your creators now. You're gonna run out. Lauren Southern, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, they're already getting all bought up. You gotta get them while the getting is good. Okay? Charlie Kirk is right there. You gotta grab him. Get him before somebody else gets him. There's other content creators that are just ripe for the picking that you could grab at any moment. Why haven't the Chinese made an offer to Hassan yet? Why are they not scrambling to make their little factions in the streaming place? China should have some streamers. Russia should have some streamers. We need to start buying some Chinese streamers. Okay? We need to move. We need to mobilize. Are you sure they haven't? Maybe. Chinese streamer pushing pro-American propaganda. The American government did spread misinformation in Asia around the Fauci ouchie. Well, not the Fauci ouchie specifically, a Chinese version of the Fauci ouchie in order to discourage its use. It was really gross. I don't like it. It was in order to try to combat Chinese soft power, but I think it violated moral boundaries. Okay, question time. We've gotten through everything. Do you guys have any questions about the implications of what this might mean? Okay, also, going forward, if somebody is lying to you about the war and it's provable they're lying and they won't admit that they're wrong, you need to start getting suspicious. It's no longer just a question of this is somebody who's maybe not uninformed. If the Russians are buying content creators. They're buying content creators. They're giving the misinformation, making them spread them. If you're seeing that type of stuff that you would see on Russian state TV being regurgitated by people that could not point out Murmansk or Cherkasy or Lviv or any of these other locations on a map, then I think we've got a problem. When Marjorie Taylor Greene was adding addendums to Ukrainian aid that was talking about Hungarian speakers' rights in Transcarpathia, do you think she had ever said the words Transcarpathia before that? Where did those words come from? Is she talking about that before? Why? Why? I have a lot of questions. I think some digging needs to be done. I hope you guys got shovels. Oh, do you guys want the map song? We haven't done the map song in a while. And I feel like, you know, it's been long enough. At least once for you guys. Once for you clowns.